What kind of man walks into a courtroom wearing a shirt that insults the police across his chest, smirks at a judge, and still leaves that same room looking like his entire soul has been turned inside out? Drop a comment telling us what you think a judge should do when disrespect shows up dressed like a warning sign. Because what happened in Providence that morning was not just a courtroom hearing. It was a collision between anger and truth, between pride and mercy. And before it was over, one sentence from Judge Caprio would hit harder than any fine ever could. Hit that subscribe button if you believe one moment can split a life into a before and an after. Like this video if you think attitude can be more dangerous than speed. And share this with someone who thinks pain gives them permission to disrespect everybody around them. At 9:03 on a gray Tuesday morning, October 14, 2025, the fluorescent lights inside Providence Municipal Court hummed over worn wooden benches, scuffed tile, and a room full of people expecting the usual parade of excuses. Parking tickets, red light violations, missed registration renewals, the dull rhythm of ordinary mistakes. Then the side door opened, and 27-year-old Marcus Bell walked in wearing a black Gildan t-shirt under an unzipped brown Carhartt jacket, with white block letters so loud they seemed to shout even in silence. F the police. A few people in the gallery actually leaned back. One older woman in a maroon cardigan whispered, "Oh no." The bailiff, Thomas Keegan, a broad-shouldered man with a silver mustache and a wedding ring polished from 30 years of habit, turned his head slowly, the way people do when they're not sure if they just saw courage, stupidity, or both. The court clerk, Diane Mara, froze with a file halfway between the desk and the bench. Even the camera mounted near the back wall, the one that routinely recorded proceedings no one outside the room would usually care about, suddenly seemed to matter. Because everybody knew this moment could go one of two ways. Either Judge Caprio was about to explode, or he was about to do something people would talk about for years. Marcus seemed to be betting on the first option. He was 5'11", lean, sharp-cheeked, with restless dark eyes and a week of beard shadow across his jaw. He wore black Dickies work pants and scuffed white Nike Air Force Ones with a faint oil stain along the outer sole, the kind that said he spent time around cars. His left hand kept flexing open and shut. Not from fear. Not yet. It looked more like the kind of twitch that comes from too much stress, too much caffeine, and too many nights pretending you're not exhausted. But the expression on his face was pure armor. The kind built from resentment. The kind men put on when they think if they stay angry enough, nobody will notice they're hurt. Marcus Bell, Diane called. Case number MC 254418. Traffic signal violation, distracted driving, and disorderly conduct during a motor vehicle stop. Marcus walked to the front like he was entering a boxing ring. No apology. No hesitation. Just that shirt. Judge Caprio looked up over his glasses, and the room got so quiet people could hear the heat clicking in the old radiator near the left wall. He did not frown. He did not raise his voice. He did not do what Marcus had come there expecting him to do. He simply folded his hands and said, "Mr. Bell, I can read from here." A few nervous laughs escaped the gallery, then died instantly. Marcus shrugged, "Good." That one word landed like a dare. Judge Caprio studied him for a moment, not the shirt, not the file, but the face. The face beneath the slogan, the face beneath the posture, the face of somebody who had walked in wanting a fight before a word had been spoken. And then the judge said quietly, "A shirt can make a statement, son. It cannot tell your whole story." Marcus gave a tight smile. Maybe the story's right there. The gallery stiffened. Officer Elena Ruiz, seated at the witness table in full Providence police uniform, looked straight ahead without reacting. She was 34, compact, composed, her dark hair pulled into a neat bun, her badge catching the courtroom light in small flashes when she breathed. She had the kind of stillness that made her look almost relaxed, but anyone who had ever worked around tension knew what it really meant. Control. Deliberate control. Judge Caprio glanced at the file again. You were cited on August 12 at 3:47 in the afternoon at the intersection of Dorrance and Westminster. Officer Ruiz states you entered the intersection after the light had turned red, while looking at your phone, and nearly struck a pedestrian and a child in the crosswalk. Marcus spoke before the judge finished. Nearly, didn't hit anybody. There it was, the first spark, not denial, minimization. Judge Caprio lifted his eyes. That your defense? Marcus folded his arms. My defense is that cops always make thin GS bigger than they are. Officer Ruiz's jaw shifted, barely. Thomas Keegan moved one step closer to the rail. Diane Mara slowly set down her pen. And in the third row sat a woman in Navy hospital scrubs beneath a beige coat, holding the hand of a 6-year-old boy wearing a red hoodie with a cartoon shark on the front. The little boy's sneakers didn't touch the floor from the bench. He stared at Marcus the way children stare at thunder before they understand what storms are. Marcus hadn't noticed them yet. That would change soon. If you've ever seen someone walk into a room believing they control the narrative, hit that like button. Because in less than 5 minutes Marcus Bell was about to find out what happens when truth starts playing on a screen, and your excuses don't survive first contact with reality. Judge Caprio turned to Diane. Do we have the footage? We do, Your Honor, she said. The words hit Marcus harder than he let show. Just for half a second, the smirk thinned. The city had a traffic camera pointed at the corner. There was also a surveillance angle from a jewelry store on Westminster, and Officer Ruiz had body cam footage from the stop itself. 3 perspectives, 3 pieces of evidence, 3 ways for a man to discover that memory becomes very fragile when video is involved. Marcus shifted his weight. Not much, but enough. The judge noticed. Everybody noticed. And that was the first crack. To understand why Marcus Bell had come to court dressed like a middle finger, you have to go back years before the ticket, before the red light, before the crosswalk, back to South Providence, to a narrow 3rd-floor apartment on Messer Street, where the wallpaper peeled in the corners and the kitchen radiator hissed all winter like it was angry at the walls. Marcus grew up there with his mother, Denise Bell, who cleaned rooms at the Graduate Hotel downtown on the overnight shift, his younger sister Nia, and for a while his father, Calvin Bell, a forklift operator with broad hands and a laugh that shook the sofa. When Marcus was 15, Calvin got pulled over in a stolen vehicle stop because a gray Honda on their block matched a partial plate from another neighborhood. Police ordered him out hard. Neighbors watched. Marcus watched from the stoop. Calvin was cleared that same day. No charges, no record from it, but humiliation has a longer shelf life than paperwork. Calvin stopped trusting uniforms after that. Marcus stopped trusting them even sooner. 2 years later, Calvin died of a stroke at 51. Then Marcus's older cousin Jamal, who was more like a brother than a cousin, got sent away on a drug case. Denise cried quietly at night when she thought the kids were asleep. Marcus took jobs wherever he could: car wash, tire shop, mobile detailing. He learned to keep his mouth sharp because it was cheaper than therapy and faster than grief. By 27, he had turned bitterness into identity. Some people wear pain like a wound. Marcus wore his like a slogan. The shirt had been bought online after an argument with a patrol officer over a parking citation. $7 plus shipping, heavy cotton, black, white print, cheap enough to buy on impulse, loud enough to become a uniform. He told friends it made people leave him alone. The truth was uglier. It made people confirm what he already believed about himself and everybody else. That morning, he had driven his silver 2011 Nissan Altima to court with his window down, even though it was 48 degrees outside. He wanted to feel amped up. He wanted to stay mad. He parked crooked on Canal Street, slammed the door harder than necessary, and walked toward the courthouse thinking if the judge looked at the shirt and got offended, that would prove his whole worldview in under 10 seconds. He had no idea he was walking toward the exact opposite. Diane dimmed the front monitor. A soft electronic click filled the courtroom. The traffic camera footage appeared first, grainy but clear enough. Date and time stamp in the lower right corner. August 12, 2025, 15:47:09. Cars stacked at the light, pedestrians waiting at the curb. Then the signal changed. A white delivery van stopped. A cyclist rolled past. A woman in scrub pants and a beige jacket stepped into the crosswalk holding the hand of a child in a red hoodie. Then Marcus's Altima entered the frame. Too fast. Not flying, not cinematic, worse than that, ordinary reckless. The kind that happens every day until the day it almost becomes a funeral. The boy froze. The woman yanked him backward so hard she lost balance. The child slipped, hit the pavement on one knee and one palm, and his red hoodie twisted sideways as the car shot through the crossing with less than a second to spare. A gasp traveled through the room. Not loud, just collective. Marcus's throat moved. Judge Caprio said nothing. He let the footage breathe. On the screen, Officer Ruiz's cruiser lights came on 2 blocks later. Then came the J. You will restore angle, sharper, closer. You could see Marcus's head tip down for a split second, the glow of the phone in his right hand. You could see the child's shark hoodie. You could see the mother's mouth open in a scream no one could hear from the silent video. You could see her left ankle buckle when she jerked backward to save her son. Marcus stared at the monitor without blinking. This was the moment that often changes a courtroom. Not the accusation, not the citation, the replay, the terrible intimacy of watching your actions from the outside. Watching the world almost rearrange itself because you decided your impulse mattered more than someone else's life. Judge Caprio spoke softly. You still want to tell me nobody got hit, so it doesn't count? Marcus swallowed. He wasn't hit. Officer Ruiz finally looked at him. The little boy in the gallery pulled his knees up onto the bench. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, the way wise people do when they've heard a lie that's technically true and morally bankrupt. There are injuries that don't leave tire marks, Mr. Bell. That line landed hard enough to make Diane stop typing. The judge turned. Officer Ruiz body camera. The next clip opened with the flashing wash of red and blue lights over Marcus's Altima. The sound came on. Wind. Passing traffic. Officer Ruiz's voice calm, controlled. Sir, put the phone down and keep your hands where I can see them. Marcus on the audio sounded younger and meaner than he did in person. For what? For driving while black. For breathing. Sir, you just ran a red light and nearly hit a woman and a child. Man, miss me with that. You people make up whatever you want. License and registration. You can write whatever fairy tale you want. F the police. The courtroom heard it, uncensored, ugly, and flat. Officer Ruiz on the body cam did not bite. License and registration. Marcus laughed. You all act tough with regular people. Go catch real criminals. The clip continued. Marcus refusing to hand over paperwork for almost 2 minutes. Officer Ruiz repeating instructions 4 times. The child crying faintly in the distance from somewhere behind the camera. The mother's voice shaking as she told another officer, he came right at us. My son fell. He could have died. That line filled the room. Marcus blinked hard. Judge Caprio asked Diane to pause. And when the screen froze on Marcus's own face, mouth half open, anger shining in him like something feverish, the judge leaned back and said, a lot of people come into this courtroom wanting me to see what was done to them. Very few are prepared to see what they did to somebody else. Nobody moved. Not the bailiff. Not the clerk. Not the woman in scrubs. Not the child. not Marcus. Drop a comment if you think video evidence tells the truth people spend years trying to hide from themselves. Because what happened next was the first moment Marcus Bell stopped performing and started realizing that the room had turned against him for reasons he could not shrug away. Judge Caprio looked toward the gallery. "Ma'am, would you please come forward?" The woman in scrubs stood carefully. She had auburn hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck, dark circles under her eyes, and the worn posture of someone who spent long shifts taking care of other people before thinking about herself. She guided the boy beside her. He hesitated at the aisle. She squeezed his hand. "This is Rochelle Kim," Diane said quietly for the record, "and her son Theodore Kim." "Theo." He stood at the rail, all elbows and uncertainty, his right knee still carrying a faint pale scar just below the kneecap. The judge's tone changed the way it often does around children, not softer exactly, but slower, steadier, as if each word is being placed where it cannot frighten them. "How old are you, Theo?" "6," he said. "What grade?" "First." Theo did not look at Marcus. He looked at the polished wood rail, then at his own shoelaces. Rochelle spoke first. "Your Honor, I'm a cardiac step-down nurse at Rhode Island Hospital. I was walking him back from the library. We had just gotten frozen yogurt from a place on Washington Street because he'd finished his summer reading packet early." She gave a shaky little laugh that broke almost immediately. It was supposed to be a good day. She inhaled, then continued. "When that car came through, I had enough time to pull him, but I twisted my ankle. He fell on his knee and hand. We went to urgent care. Nothing broken. But for weeks he wouldn't cross a street unless I carried him. He woke up crying 3 nights in a row. He asked if the driver hated children." Theo's shoulders tightened. Marcus looked at the floor. Rochelle reached into her bag and handed Diane a folded paper. "I brought the urgent care discharge summary and the note from his school counselor." The clerk passed them to Judge Caprio. The judge read in silence for several seconds. That kind of silence in a courtroom is rent from ordinary quiet. It has weight. It presses. It makes everyone hear themselves more clearly than they want to. Then the judge asked, "Theo, do you want to say anything?" Rochelle bent down. "Only if you want, baby." The little boy nodded without lifting his eyes. His voice came out so small the courtroom had to lean into it. "I thought the car was gonna smash me." Nobody breathed. Theo continued, words clumsy with that painful honesty children have when they still believe truth should be enough all by itself. "And my mom fell 'cause she grabbed me. I had blood on my hand, and I don't like when cars go fast now." Marcus's face changed. Not all at once. It was subtler than that. The jaw unclenched first. Then the eyes lost some fight. Then came the first look people get when arrogance meets innocence and discovers it has no language for what it's seeing. Judge Caprio asked Theo, "Did you bring that paper you wrote?" Theo nodded again. Rochelle helped him unfold a sheet of lined notebook paper, corners bent, a child's block letters written in blue pencil. Diane read it aloud because Theo's throat had started to close. "I got scared when the silver car came. My mom pulled me and I fell. My knee hurt. I dreamt the car came in my room. I don't want that to happen to other kids." The last word came out shaky. "Kids. Plural. Not just him. Other kids." A little 6-year-old, already thinking about strangers. Marcus shut his eyes. Just once. Just 1 second. But the room saw it. And everybody in that courtroom knew something had shifted. Not enough, not yet, but enough to matter. Judge Caprio laid the letter on top of the file with more care than he had shown the legal paperwork. "Mr. Bell, now we're no longer discussing a traffic citation in the abstract. We're discussing a child who carried your decision home with him." Marcus exhaled through his nose. "I didn't mean to scare anybody." It was the first sentence he'd spoken that didn't sound like a weapon. Judge Caprio answered, "Intent matters. Consequences matter too. One doesn't erase the other." That was quote number 2 the room would remember. Marcus rubbed his hands on his pants. I was looking down for a second. Officer Ruiz spoke for the first time since the videos. It only takes a second. Another line that would travel. Short, clean, unforgettable. Marcus glanced at her, then away. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Why the shirt, Mr. Bell?" Marcus stiffened again. "Because that's how I feel." About Officer Ruiz. About all of it. All of what? Marcus finally looked up, and there it was. Not just attitude, history, old smoke, stored up humiliation, anger that had been waiting years for an audience. About cops pulling people like me over for every little thing. About being treated like you're guilty before anybody knows your name. About watching them act like they own the street. The room stayed silent. Even Rochelle. Even Theo. Judge Caprio didn't interrupt. Marcus pressed on, voice harder now because pain often returns to anger when it feels exposed. "My father got thrown on the hood of a car in front of me when I was 15 because some officer thought a plate number matched. They were wrong. Didn't matter. Everybody on our block saw it. My father never got over that. Then my cousin gets taken away. Then every time I get stopped, it's hands on the wheel, yes sir, no sir, like I'm one bad mood away from not getting home. So yeah. That's how I feel." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Because what he said was not nonsense. It was pain. But pain does not become wisdom just because it's real. Judge Caprio nodded. "You may have reasons, but reasons are not a license to make enemies out of everyone in a uniform, especially not when you are the one running the light." Marcus opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I still think they target people." Judge Caprio replied, "Perhaps sometimes people are treated unfairly, but that possibility did not push your foot through a red light while a child was in the crosswalk." That one landed too, because it cut away every escape route at once. If you've ever seen someone confuse their trauma for permission, hit subscribe, because this next turn is where the entire case stopped being about a shirt and started becoming about whether Marcus Bell still had enough honesty left in him to save his own future. Diane handed the judge another document. He scanned it, then looked at Marcus. "You have one prior citation for illegal parking and one for using a phone while driving, both reduced last year after completion of a safe driving course." Marcus's eyes dropped. So this was not the first warning. Not the first brush. Not the first chance. Rochelle stepped back from the rail, but Theo did not move. He kept staring at Marcus now, not with hatred, not even with fear exactly, but with the kind of solemn confusion children get when adults behave in ways that do not fit their idea of how grown-ups are supposed to act. Marcus finally met his gaze, and something in him visibly flinched. Then the side door opened again. The noise was small, just a soft metal click, but it drew every eye in the room. A tired-looking woman in charcoal housekeeping shoes, black slacks, and a pale blue uniform cardigan stepped in, hair pinned up loosely, a lunch tote still over one shoulder. Beside her was a slim 12-year-old girl with two puff ponytails, a gray hoodie, a backpack covered in enamel pins, and a folded inhaler spacer sticking out of the side pocket. Denise Bell and Nia Bell. Marcus's mother and little sister. Marcus turned sharply. "Ma, what are you doing here?" Denise looked embarrassed to have entered late. "Diane called me at the hotel, said the case was still on. I got coverage for 20 minutes. Nia's eyes went from Marcus to the judge to Officer Ruiz. Then she froze. The kind of freeze that comes from recognition, arriving before language. She tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered something. Denise frowned. "What?" Nia whispered again, urgent now. Denise's face changed. She looked at Officer Ruiz more carefully. Officer Ruiz noticed and looked back with a slight crease in her brow, like she was trying to place them too. Judge Caprio saw the entire exchange. He missed very little. "Miss Bell," he said gently, "would you and your daughter like a seat?" Denise nodded and moved to the front row. Marcus was now split between anger, embarrassment, and the new, unwelcome feeling that things were happening in this courtroom beyond his control. He hated that feeling. All proud men do. They can handle accusation better than uncertainty. Nia kept staring at Officer Ruiz. Her small hand had tightened around the strap of her backpack, so hard her knuckles turned pale. And the room could feel it. A thread had been pulled. Nobody knew what it was attached to yet. But everyone knew it mattered. Judge Caprio returned to Marcus. "Do you support your family?" Marcus hesitated. "I help out." "With what?" "Rent, groceries. I do mobile detailing out of East Providence 3 days a week and at a body shop on Reservoir 2 days." "You drive for work?" "Yes." "So your license matters." Marcus gave a tight nod. The judge leaned back. "Then you should understand better than most that a vehicle in careless hands can become a weapon before a person even realizes it." Marcus stared at the wood grain of the rail. Then Rochelle, who had every right in the world to stay angry, said something nobody expected. "Your Honor," she said, "may I say one more thing?" Judge Caprio nodded. She turned slightly toward Marcus. "I'm not here because I want your life destroyed. I came because my son needed to see that what happened mattered." That hit harder than any accusation. Because mercy, when it comes from the person you harmed, has a way of stripping ego clean off the bone. Rochelle continued, voice trembling but firm. "Children watch what adults do after they make mistakes. That matters too." Marcus looked at her for the first time like he was really seeing her. Not as a witness. Not as a complication. As a person. She had a hospital ID clipped inside her coat pocket. Her left ankle still had a visible compression brace above her sneaker. Her eyes were tired in that deep, medical worker way that says life has already asked too much of them before noon. And still she was choosing dignity. The gallery felt it. Judge Caprio felt it. Marcus definitely felt it. But this story was not done reaching into him. Not even close. Like this video, if you believe the strongest people in the room are often the ones with every right to be furious and still choose restraint. Because what came next cracked open a layer of Marcus Bell that even his own family had been afraid to touch. Judge Caprio spoke more quietly now. "Mr. Bell, I want to know something. Did you come here today hoping I'd react to the shirt?" Marcus didn't answer. The judge repeated, "Did you wear it because it's what you believe, or because you wanted a reaction?" Marcus let out a bitter laugh with no humor in it. "Maybe both." "Why?" Marcus looked over his shoulder at his mother, then away. "Because people listen when you make them uncomfortable." Judge Caprio shook his head once. "No, people become defensive when you make them uncomfortable. They listen when you make them honest." That was another one. Diane actually paused before typing it. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Whatever I say now, you all already decided who I am." Judge Caprio's voice stayed level. "Then prove us wrong." That sentence hung in the courtroom like a challenge. Not loud. Not dramatic. But impossible to dodge. For a moment Marcus looked almost young again, almost like the 15-year-old on the stoop watching his father humiliated in front of neighbors. That boy had never quite left. He had just grown sharper edges and a louder mouth. Denise Bell cleared her throat from the front row. "Marcus." He turned, irritated. "Ma, not now." No, she said, surprising him with the steel in her voice. Now. The whole room shifted toward her. Denise was 49, shoulders slightly rounded from years of hotel carts and linen bags, skin tired around the eyes, but there was still a striking dignity about her. She stood up slowly, set her lunch tote on the bench, and faced the rail. "You are not a bad man," she said, "but you have been acting like an angry one for so long you forgot there's a difference." Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. Denise continued, "Since your father died, you think the whole world owes you for what it took from you. Maybe some of it does, but these people didn't run that light. You did." No one in the room moved. Nia's eyes filled instantly. Denise drew a breath that shook on the way out. "You help with rent, yes. You take your sister to school when I'm on overtime, yes. You buy groceries when I'm short, yes. But then you turn around and carry yourself like every person trying to correct you is the enemy. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to love someone who's always ready to swing at the world." Marcus whispered, "Ma." She shook her head. "No, you're listening today." A murmur traveled through the back benches. This was no longer just court. This was intervention. And everybody knew it. Judge Caprio allowed it because sometimes justice happens in the space where law and truth overlap. Nia raised her hand timidly, almost like she was in class. The gesture broke the tension in a way that made it even more painful. The judge smiled gently. "Yes, young lady." She looked at Marcus first, then at Officer Ruiz. "Can I ask something?" "You may." Nia pointed with one small finger. "Was she at our apartment in March?" Officer Ruiz's head tilted. "March." Nia nodded faster now. "When my mom got sick, you had the silver bracelet with the little blue heart." Every eye in the room swung to Officer Ruiz's wrist. There it was. A thin silver bracelet with a tiny blue enamel heart. Officer Ruiz blinked. Recognition hit her face like a ripple. Messer Street. Denise put a hand over her mouth. Nia said, "Third floor, apartment 3B." Officer Ruiz looked stunned for the first time all morning. "Your mother had a diabetic episode." Denise slowly sat back down. Marcus turned completely toward them. "What are you talking about?" And that was the cliff edge. Because now the courtroom had opened a second door into Marcus Bell's life, and what stood behind it was about to destroy the last safe lie he had been using to protect himself. Share this with someone who thinks they already know the full story, because the next revelation didn't just change the case. It changed who Marcus thought he'd been hating all along. The judge asked Officer Ruiz, "Can you explain?" She nodded, still looking at Denise and Nia. "March 3. Just after 6:20 p.m. dispatch sent me and rescue to a welfare check on Messer Street. 12-year-old caller reported her mother was confused and shaking and wouldn't wake up properly. We forced no entry. The door was unlocked. Rescue treated low blood sugar on scene and transported to Rhode Island Hospital." Denise's eyes shone. "It was you." Officer Ruiz gave a small nod. "I stayed with your daughter until your sister came." Marcus frowned hard. "I was at work." Denise looked at him. "You didn't answer your phone." That line was quiet, but it cut. Nia added softly, "I thought Mommy was dying." The room shifted again. Now Marcus wasn't just the reckless driver. He was the absent son, the brother who had not picked up, the man who had wrapped himself in outrage while missing parts of his own family's survival story. Officer Ruiz turned back to the bench. "I didn't realize it was the same family until now, Your Honor." Judge Caprio steepled his fingers. "Interesting." It was more than interesting. It was devastating. Marcus said, almost defensively, "What does that have to do with this?" Judge Caprio answered in a voice that went all the way through him. "Perhaps more than you're comfortable with." Diane quickly searched the digital record. "There is body cam from that welfare response, Your Honor, logged under the EMS assist. Marcus's face tightened. "We need to watch more video." The judge met his eyes. "If it helps us understand the truth, yes." Officer Ruiz remained composed. Rochelle and Theo stayed at the side rather than leaving. Denise pulled Nia closer. Thomas Keegan folded his arms near the rail, his expression unreadable. The monitor flickered again. A dim apartment hallway appeared. Old paint, narrow walls, the tinny echo of footsteps on wood stairs. Officer Ruiz's body cam timestamp read March 3, 2025, 18:24, 11. Heavy breathing from climbing stairs, then a door half open. A girl's frightened voice, "In here." The camera entered the Bell apartment. Denise lay slumped against the kitchen cabinets, face gray, one slipper twisted halfway off. A cereal bowl had shattered on the floor. Milk and corn flakes SPR. Eat near the radiator. Nia, smaller than in a school polo and pink socks, was crying so hard she could barely answer questions. Rescue knelt beside Denise. Officer Ruiz crouched to Nia's level. "Look at me," she said on the footage, calm as stone. "Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Good, you called for help. You did exactly right." On screen, the young Nia clung to Officer Ruiz's sleeve. Present-day Nia began crying in the courtroom. Marcus didn't move. He couldn't. On the video, Officer Ruiz took off her own navy cardigan because the apartment was cold and wrapped it around Nia's shoulders. She asked if there was family to call. Nia gave Marcus's number. The camera captured Officer Ruiz trying it twice. No answer. She left a voicemail. Marcus's lips parted. He had never heard about the voicemail. Or maybe he had deleted it in the chaos of work and forgotten. Either way, it was there now, on screen, unforgiving. Then came the part that broke the room. Nia asked on the body cam, "Are the police gonna be mad at mommy?" Officer Ruiz answered, "No, sweetheart. We're here to help your mommy. Nobody's in trouble." No speech. No slogan. No ideology. Just help. Just a public servant kneeling on a cheap kitchen floor, telling a scared child the world was not ending. The courtroom didn't just go quiet, it went still. Marcus's face lost color. His breathing changed. Everybody heard it. Judge Caprio let the clip continue. On screen, Denise was loaded to the stretcher. Nia began panicking again. Officer Ruiz stayed with her in the hall, talking softly until Denise's sister arrived in a green Toyota Corolla. Before leaving, she gave Nia a pack of hospital penguin stickers that happened to be in the first responder kit. Present-day Nia whispered, "I still have one in my notebook." Marcus's shoulders dropped. For the first time since walking in, he looked small. Not physically. Spiritually. Like somebody who had just discovered his anger, had been firing blind for years, and had hit people who once stood between his family and disaster. Judge Caprio asked Diane to pause the footage. Then he looked at Marcus and said the line that would later be clipped, shared, replayed, and quoted by millions. "The uniform you hated was the same uniform that helped hold your family together." Nobody in that room would ever forget how Marcus reacted to those 12 words. He didn't argue. He didn't scoff. He didn't hide behind the shirt. His chin trembled. Just once. Then twice. And like a dam cracking one seam at a time, the performance finally started to collapse. If you're still watching, comment with one word for what Marcus must have felt in that exact second. Because shame, grief, regret, disbelief, and gratitude all hit him at once, and the human face is not built to hide that much truth forever. Marcus spoke so quietly the microphone barely caught it. "I didn't know." Judge Caprio answered, "Now you do." Marcus looked at Officer Ruiz, really looked, not at the badge, not at the uniform, at her, the woman on the kitchen floor, the woman he had cursed on the street, the woman who had told his terrified little sister to breathe. "I didn't know," he said again, this time to her. Officer Ruiz held his gaze. "I believe you." That mercy almost destroyed him more than anger would have. He ran a hand over his mouth. His eyes filled. He blinked hard, like blinking could stop what was happening. It couldn't. Rochelle stood frozen by the witness table with one hand on Theo's shoulder. Denise started crying silently into a tissue she pulled from her cardigan sleeve. Nia watched Marcus with the aching hope children carry when they want the adults they love to finally become who they know they can be. Judge Caprio spoke carefully. "Mr. Bell, pain can explain a person. It cannot excuse them. There is a difference. If pain is your only lawyer, you will lose every case you bring against the world." That was another line the room felt in its bones. Marcus's voice cracked. "I know I messed up." The judge didn't let him escape with something vague. "Say what you did." Marcus swallowed. "I ran the light. I looked at my phone. I scared them." He glanced at Theo, then away because the child's face was somehow harder to bear than the judge's. "And I disrespected Officer Ruiz." The judge nodded. "Anything else?" Marcus was silent for 3 seconds that felt like 30. Then he said, "I used what happened to my father like it gave me permission to be cruel to people who didn't do that to me." The room exhaled. There it was. The truth. Not polished, not complete, but real. And reality is the only place redemption ever starts. Judge Caprio turned to Officer Ruiz. "Did the defendant physically resist?" "No, Your Honor." "Threaten you?" "No." "Comply after repeated instruction?" "Eventually." The judge nodded again. "And are you seeking the maximum penalty on the disorderly conduct complaint?" Officer Ruiz paused. She could have said why. Ease, no one would have blamed her. Marcus had publicly insulted her, delayed the stop, and nearly hurt 2 innocent people. The easiest thing in the world would have been to recommend the full fine, license suspension, and move on. Instead, she said, "I'm seeking accountability." That word rolled through the room with more power than punishment. Judge Caprio asked, "Define that." Officer Ruiz took a breath. "I want him to understand what almost happened. I want him to hear the people he affected. And I want him to leave here less dangerous than he came in." Everybody felt that one. Even Thomas Keegan lowered his eyes for a second. Judge Caprio said, "That is a very wise answer, officer." Rochelle looked at Officer Ruiz with sudden respect, so visible it seemed to lift the air around them. Theo leaned into his mother's side. Marcus wiped under one eye and probably hated himself for needing to. He said, "I'm sorry." It came out rough, incomplete, more reflex than transformation. Judge Caprio heard it and shook his head slightly. "No, not yet. That was for relief, not for them." Marcus closed his eyes. The judge continued, "Real apology names the damage without centering the person who caused it. Try again." That line was pure Judge Caprio, calm, surgical, impossible to ignore. Marcus inhaled shakily. Then he turned fully toward Rochelle and Theo. "Ms. Kim," he said, "Theo, I was wrong. I drove like your lives didn't matter more than whatever was on my phone. You fell because of me. You got hurt because of me. And you got scared because of me. I'm sorry for all of it." Rochelle's eyes welled instantly. Theo looked up at his mother, then back at Marcus. "Are you gonna drive like that again?" Nobody in that room was ready for how brutally direct that question felt. Marcus crouched slightly so he wasn't towering over him. "No." Theo narrowed his little eyes with the seriousness only children and judges can pull off. "Promise." Marcus nodded. "I promise." Theo held his stare for one long moment, and then, with the strange grace children sometimes show when adults least deserve it, he said, "Okay." People in the gallery actually sniffed. Diane had stopped pretending she wasn't emotional. Denise pressed the tissue to her lips. But Judge Caprio was not finished. Because truth without consequence becomes theater. And this courtroom was not a stage. It was a turning point. Like this video, if you believe justice means more than humiliation, because the next 10 minutes were where everyone in that room realized Judge Caprio was not deciding whether Marcus Bell deserved consequences. He was deciding whether those consequences would bury him or rebuild him. The judge placed both hands flat on the bench. "Mr. Bell, the easy thing for me to do would be to fine you, suspend your license for a period, and send you out of here with a record of another bad day. It would also be easy for me to punish the shirt. But the law is not here to punish fabric. It is here to correct conduct." Marcus stood very still. Judge Caprio continued, "You support your mother and sister. Losing your license would affect them. That matters. You nearly struck a child. That matters more. You have prior warnings for phone use while driving. That matters too." He looked at Rochelle. "Ms. Kim, if you are willing, I'd like to know what outcome you think would be meaningful." Rochelle seemed stunned by being asked. She hesitated. "Your Honor, I don't need him crushed. I just need him changed." Another one. Crushed versus changed. The gallery murmured. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "Excellent distinction." He then turned to Marcus. "Do you know why people are reacting so strongly to your shirt?" Marcus swallowed. "Because it's disrespectful." The judge shook his head. "That's part of it. The larger reason is because it tells the world you've already judged every person in a category before they've opened their mouth. That is the same unfairness you say wounded your father." Marcus looked like the air had been knocked out of him. Judge Caprio leaned forward. "You became the thing you resented." No one in the room could hide from that. Not Marcus. Not even the viewers who would one day replay this. That line cut through every political instinct, every slogan, every team jersey people wear in their heads, because it was bigger than police, bigger than court, bigger than one man. It was about what pain does when it stops being processed and starts being passed on. Marcus shook his head slightly, overwhelmed. "I didn't see it like that." "Most people don't," the judge said, "not until the bill comes due." And then came the choice. Judge Caprio laid it out in plain terms. "I can impose the statutory fines on the red light citation and distracted driving complaint, add the disorderly conduct penalty, and suspend your license for 90 days. Or I can structure something else. But if I choose the second path, it will require more from you than money." Marcus looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means work, it means humility, it means repair." Officer Ruiz shifted in her seat, listening carefully. Rochelle held Theo a little closer. Denise's tears had slowed, but her eyes were still red. Nia sat ramrod straight, like she knew this was the kind of moment families remember at kitchen tables for decades. Judge Caprio spoke deliberately. "I am considering 80 hours of community service with the Providence Youth Traffic Safety Initiative and the Police Athletic League Center on Potters Avenue. You will attend 3 trauma-informed driving sessions. You will write a letter of apology to Theo Kim that is approved by this court before it is delivered. You will also stand in front of 2 high school driver education classes and explain exactly what nearly happened at that crosswalk. Complete all of it, and I will reduce the financial penalties significantly and keep your license active on probationary status. Fail, and the full fines plus suspension go into effect immediately." The room went silent again. Because this was bigger than punishment. This was a path. But paths are harder than penalties. Marcus asked, "You want me working with police?" Judge Caprio replied, "I want you working with reality." That one hit too. Marcus's throat worked. The judge wasn't done, and there is one more condition. Marcus looked up. You will not wear that shirt in this courtroom again, and preferably not in your life again. Not because I am offended by cloth, because you should not keep advertising an identity that is killing your ability to see people clearly." Marcus stared at him. For a second, it seemed he might resist one last time, cling to the last scrap of the old persona that had protected him for years. Then something unexpected happened. Officer Ruiz spoke up. "Your Honor, may I?" Judge Caprio nodded. She turned toward Marcus. "If he completes the program, I'd like to be one of the officers present when he speaks to the students." The whole room shifted. Marcus looked startled. "Why?" Officer Ruiz answered, "Because they should hear from both sides. They should hear that people can do harm without being monsters, and they can wear a uniform without being the enemy." That line might have been the wisest thing said all morning. Judge Caprio gave a faint smile. "Officer Ruiz, that may be the best testimony you've given." Rochelle looked at Marcus. "If you actually do it, I'll bring Theo to one of the sessions, so he can see promises kept." Marcus nearly broke all over again. This was the mercy twist. Not just one person. All of them. The officer he cursed. The mother he endangered. The child he terrified. None of them were asking for his destruction. They were asking for his transformation. And suddenly the shirt looked very small. Very cheap. Very childish. Like armor from a life he could no longer defend. Hit that subscribe button if you believe the most unforgettable courtroom moments happen when people get the chance to become better instead of just being labeled forever. Because what Marcus did next was the first true act of courage he showed all day. He reached down, pulled at the hem of the black shirt beneath the jacket, and looked at Judge Caprio. "Can I take it off?" For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Judge Caprio said, "If you wish." Marcus stripped off the Carhartt jacket first. Then right there in the courtroom, without drama, without performance, he pulled the black slogan shirt over his head. Under it was a plain gray Hanes undershirt. Ordinary, human, unarmored. The gallery let out a breath so collective, it was almost a sound. Marcus folded the black shirt once. Then again. And placed it on the rail in front of him like evidence. No speech. No stunt. Just surrender. Judge Caprio looked at the folded shirt, then at Marcus. "Much better. Now we can see the man and not just the message." Marcus nodded with eyes wet and voice gone. The judge made his ruling official. The red light and distracted driving citations would remain on record pending completion of the court-ordered program. The disorderly conduct complaint would be held open and dismissed upon full compliance. Marcus would report within 7 days to program coordinator Lionel Booker at the PAL Center. He would submit proof of attendance at every session. Any violation, any missed appointment without good cause, any further phone-related driving citation, and the suspended penalties would snap back into place. Marcus said, "Yes, sir." No one missed the difference in how he said sir this time. Not fear. Respect. Earned respect. Big difference. Then Judge Caprio looked at him one last time before moving on. "Mr. Bell, listen carefully. Respect is easiest when life has been kind to you. Character is what you wear when life has not. Don't let your pain become your personality." That was the line. The line people would quote under clips, in comments, in reaction videos, at dinner tables, in group chats. The line th. It felt like it belonged not just to Marcus, but to half the angry world. Marcus whispered, "I won't forget that." The judge answered, "See that you don't." And just like that, the gavel tapped once, light but final. Case continued for compliance review in 60 days. But the story was only halfway done. Because court rulings can change a schedule. What happened after this one changed a life. Drop a comment if you think a courtroom should be allowed to create second chances like this, because the next chapter did not happen in front of a bench. It happened in the hard, unglamorous days after the cameras stopped mattering, and a person either lives up to their promises or proves they were just another emotional scene. For the first week, Marcus hated every minute of what came next. That's the truth. Transformation sounds beautiful in clips. In real life, it starts out humiliating. 3 days after court, he showed up at the Providence Pal Center on Potters Avenue in a Navy work shirt and jeans, clutching a folder with his court paperwork like it was a summons to a life he had not chosen. Lionel Booker, a 58-year-old former high school basketball coach with a shaved head, a booming laugh, and a habit of seeing through young men before they were ready to be seen, met him in the lobby beneath a faded mural of kids in boxing gloves and graduation caps. "You bail?" Lionel asked. Marcus nodded. Lionel looked him up and down. "Judge says you got an attitude." Marcus gave the tiniest smirk, maybe less than before. Lionel snorted. "Good, means there's room to work." The center smelled like floor polish, stale coffee, and rubber from the boxing mats. Kids' voices bounced from the gym down the hall. Trophy cases lined the front corridor. On one wall hung framed photos of officers coaching basketball, helping at food drives, standing beside students in caps and gowns. Marcus hated how much that image complicated his old story. Lionel didn't let him stand there brooding. He handed him a stack of orange cones. Traffic safety setup, gym first, then after-school snack tables. Marcus spent 4 hours arranging chairs, taping down mock crosswalk lines, stacking pamphlets about distracted driving, and trying not to think about the fact that 12-year-olds were better at listening than he had been. On the second day, he met Officer Priya Nanjari, who ran part of the youth safety curriculum and spoke about intersections with the enthusiasm of a science teacher. On the third day, he met Sergeant Alan Mendez, who looked like a weight room had grown a mustache, and who turned out to be gentle enough with kids that several called him Uncle Al. Every officer Marcus met was a problem for the identity he had built. Not because they were perfect, because they were human. Complex, annoying sometimes, dedicated more often than not. And that was harder to hate. Meanwhile, the court-ordered trauma-informed driving sessions forced Marcus to sit in a room with 6 other people who had each scared someone on the road. A college student who rear-ended a school bus, a delivery driver who clipped a cyclist, a mother who texted through a stop sign and sent another woman to the ER. The facilitator, Dr. Evelyn Shore, made them do something Marcus initially despised. She made them narrate the moment from the victim's perspective. The first time Marcus tried it, he stumbled after 7 words. "The kid is crossing and he sees." He stopped. Dr. Shore said, "Keep going." Marcus stared at the carpet. He sees a car coming too fast. What does he feel? Marcus's hands clenched. He feels like nobody sees him. That was it. That was the sentence that cracked him open in therapy before it cracked him open in life. Because underneath all his anger was the same fear. Nobody sees me. Nobody saw his father's shame. Nobody saw his mother's exhaustion. Nobody saw his own panic hardening into contempt. And in that classroom, for the first time, Marcus realized he had handed that same invisibility to a 6-year-old boy in a crosswalk. There are moments you can't unknow once you say them out loud. That was one. By week 3, Marcus had written 4 different apology letters to Theo. Judge Caprio rejected the first 2 through Diane because they still sounded too much like self-defense. Too many references to what Marcus had been through. Too much "I didn't mean" and not enough "I did." The third was better. The fourth was finally right. "Dear Theo," it read, "I scared you because I was careless. Your safety mattered more than my phone and more than my temper. You did not deserve that. Your mother protected you when I should have driven in a way that meant you never needed protecting from me. I am working so that what happened to you does not happen to another child. Short, clear, no excuses. Judge approved it. Rochelle accepted it. Theo drew a small green traffic light in the corner of his reply and wrote, in crooked pencil, "Thank you for telling Th. Truth." Marcus kept that note in his glove compartment for months. Like this video, if you think the hardest part of becoming better is not being forgiven by others, but becoming someone your own reflection can respect, because Marcus Bell was still headed for one more moment he never saw coming. It happened on a Thursday evening in November at the second driver education session at Central High. The auditorium lights were too bright, and the microphone squealed when Marcus first adjusted it. About 90 juniors sat scattered through red fold-down seats, half interested, half convinced nothing bad ever happens to people their age unless it's in a viral clip. Officer Ruiz stood at the side of the stage in uniform, just as she'd promised. Lionel Booker sat in the back row with arms crossed. Rochelle and Theo had come too, though Marcus hadn't known until he spotted them entering from the side door. His mouth went dry. Then he saw one more person. Nia, beside Denise. Front row. Watching. He almost asked for a minute. Didn't. He stepped to the mic and looked at the students. I'm here because I thought being angry made me smart. The room quieted. Good opening. He continued. I ran a red light because I looked at my phone for 1 second and figured that second belonged to me.